Some cars gain mythical status, collectors drool, enthusiasts brag, and auction prices skyrocket. But in reality, many of these so-called rare cars were mass-produced, overhyped, or forgettably ordinary, yet marketing and legend made them seem exotic. People paid big money for hype, not history. Here are 9 cars that fooled everyone.
Dear viewer, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for your support.
Number 9. The 1977 Datsun 280Z, reliability over rarity. When most people think of classic Japanese sports cars, the image that comes to mind is the Nissan Z car. The original 240Z, introduced in 1969, set the standard. Sleek design, a lightweight chassis, and a 6-cylinder engine that could outperform European cars at half the price. Because of that legacy, many people automatically assume that every Z car that followed must also be rare, collectible, or instantly valuable. The 1977 Datsun 280Z is a perfect example of why that assumption is false. First, let's talk about production. The 280Z was not a boutique sports car. Nissan built it for mass appeal, particularly in the American market. In 1977 alone, over 50,000 units were produced. Across its entire first-generation run, from 1975 to 1978, production easily exceeded 200,000 cars. To put that in perspective, many sports cars that are considered rare today were built in only a few thousand or even a few hundred units. The 280Z, by contrast, was everywhere. It was designed to be accessible to a broad audience, not to create scarcity. Another key point is survival rates. While early Z cars did have some rust issues, especially in climates with harsh winters, the 280Z actually survived in high numbers, thanks to its reliability and durability. Its L28E inline-6, a 2.8-liter fuel-injected straight-six, was known for its long lifespan. Many of these engines regularly reach 200,000 to 300,000 miles with routine maintenance. Coupled with a simple and robust drivetrain, these cars often stayed on the road for decades rather than being scrapped after a few years. The very characteristics that make it a good classic today, durability, easy maintenance, and mechanical simplicity, were the same features that kept survival rates high. However, not all aspects of the 280Z were praised. The car was heavier than its predecessor, the 240Z, due to emissions controls, safety regulations, and added comfort features. In practical terms, this meant a less agile car. The original 240Z was light, nimble, and sporty. The 280Z, while still fun to drive, was more of a touring car, comfortable for longer drives, but lacking the pure sports car feel of the early Zs. The addition of larger bumpers to meet U.S. crash standards, more interior insulation, and heavier materials all contributed to a car that was reliable, but not razor-sharp in handling. This distinction has important consequences for collectors. While the 240Z commands high prices because of rarity, historical significance, and its lightweight, performance-oriented design, the 280Z does not carry the same cachet. It's a common classic, abundant and affordable, rather than a scarce trophy. Enthusiasts still love it. It has iconic styling, a bulletproof engine, and is very mod-friendly, but its value today is driven by nostalgia, accessibility, and mod potential, not scarcity. The market for 280Zs illustrates this clearly. Project cars can be found for a few $1,000s, while well-kept drivers may sell for $15,000 to $25,000. Rare, fully restored, show-quality examples might reach $40,000 or more, but even then, the supply is sufficient that these prices are reasonable compared to other rare sports cars of the same era. By contrast, an original low-mileage 240Z can sell for double or triple that amount. Culturally, the 280Z played a significant role in establishing Nissan as a serious player in the U.S. sports car market. It offered reliable, stylish performance at a price point many Americans could afford, which helped cement the Z car's reputation. Enthusiasts appreciate it for this reason. It represents a gateway into the world of classic Japanese sports cars. It's also extremely popular among modifiers and tuners due to the robustness of the L28E engine and the simplicity of its chassis. Over the years, many 280Zs have been swapped with larger engines, turbocharged, or turned into track cars, all evidence of the platform's versatility. In summary, the 1977 Datsun 280Z is frequently misunderstood. People assume it is rare and collectible simply because it is a classic Z car. In reality, it was mass-produced in huge numbers. It survived in high numbers because of durability and reliability. It is less sporty than earlier models, emphasizing comfort and usability over extreme performance, and its market value is driven by nostalgia, reliability, and mod potential, not scarcity. For enthusiasts, the 280Z is a beloved classic, a reliable, stylish, and historically significant car, but it is not a rare unicorn. Its charm lies in accessibility, a classic Japanese sports car that is still easy to find, drive, and enjoy. Those looking for a true rare Z car will still need to hunt down a 240Z or a low production variant, but the 280Z remains the practical, approachable, and endlessly lovable option for collectors and enthusiasts alike. Number 8. The 1965 Ford Mustang Fastback, the everyday icon. When people think of the first-generation Mustang, one of the first images that comes to mind is usually the Shelby GT350 or other performance variants. These cars are instantly recognizable: racing stripes, roaring engines, and the kind of rarity that fuels collector obsession. But there's a problem. Most Mustangs weren't Shelbys. The vast majority were base models, plain fastbacks or standard coupes. These everyday Mustangs are widely misunderstood and often overlooked, despite their historical significance. The Mustang was launched in April 1964 as a 1965 model and became an instant phenomenon. Demand was staggering. Over 400,000 Mustangs sold in the first year, an unprecedented number for a new model. Of these, the fastback body style accounted for roughly half of total sales. The vast majority were base models, with standard six-cylinder engines and minimal options. In other words, the Mustang Fastback was not rare, it was everywhere. Yet in today's collector culture, people often assume every Mustang is either a Shelby or a rare performance edition, when in fact, the ordinary fastbacks were the backbone of Mustang sales. The confusion arises from several factors. Styling similarities. The base 1965 fastback shared the same sleek aerodynamic silhouette as the high-performance variants. From a distance, it could look like a sports car. Media portrayal. Movies and TV often feature the Shelbys or heavily modified Mustangs, which reinforces the idea that all Mustangs are performance machines. Collector mythology. Because Shelbys are extremely valuable, ordinary fastbacks are often misrepresented as hidden gems, despite their abundance. The reality, most Mustangs on the road in 1965 were far from high-performance cars. They were practical, stylish daily drivers intended for young families, first-time car buyers, and enthusiasts on a budget. The 1965 Mustang Fastback came with a variety of engine and transmission options. Standard six-cylinder engine, 170 cubic inches, 101 horsepower. Optional six-cylinder, 200 cubic inches, 120 horsepower. V8 options, 260, 289 cubic inches, with various horsepower ratings up to 271 horsepower for the K-Code version. Base fastbacks were often fitted with the slower six-cylinder engines, manual transmissions, and minimal trim. These cars weren't built to dominate a racetrack. They were built to be affordable, stylish, and fun to drive. Weight and dimensions. Wheelbase, 108 inches. Length, about 181 inches. Curb weight, about 2,600 pounds. Performance was modest but adequate. A six-cylinder Mustang could cruise on the highway, handle city traffic, and turn heads without being fast or rare. Even though they weren't Shelbys, these cars mattered. The base fastback helped establish the Mustang as the car that launched the pony car era. Its appeal was widespread. Affordable, many young buyers could purchase a base Mustang with a reasonable budget. Stylish, fastback styling was sporty and modern, appealing to teenagers and young adults. Customizable, buyers could add options over time, from engine upgrades to interior trim, creating a personalized car without spending a fortune. The fastback became a symbol of freedom, youth, and individuality in mid-1960s America. Yet, ironically, the most common fastbacks are now often ignored in classic car circles, overshadowed by the rarer high-performance Shelbys. While not rare, base fastbacks are increasingly appreciated by collectors for several reasons. Survivability. They were daily drivers, and many were maintained because they were reliable and straightforward to repair. Styling. The fastback silhouette remains timeless. Even without racing stripes or high horsepower, the lines of the 1965 fastback are instantly recognizable. Affordability. For collectors who want a classic Mustang without paying Shelby prices, a base fastback is an accessible option. Authenticity. Original base models are a snapshot of the Mustang boom, what ordinary Americans actually drove in the 1960s. In some cases, base fastbacks have even become restoration projects, where enthusiasts aim to preserve a car's historical accuracy rather than chase speed. A few myths persist. Myth: every 1965 fastback is rare. Reality: thousands were made. Base models are common in classic car inventories today. Myth: only Shelbys are worth collecting. Reality: base fastbacks provide historical context and affordability. They are often the first Mustang a collector buys before moving on to rare variants. Myth: base fastbacks are boring. Reality: even with a six-cylinder engine, these cars were fun to drive, stylish, and part of an iconic cultural moment. The 1965 Mustang fastback base models influenced the pony car market for decades. Competitors like the Chevrolet Camaro and Pontiac Firebird copied the formula of a compact, affordable, sporty coupe. Ford used the base fastback as a platform for customization, racing, and marketing campaigns. The popularity of base models allowed Ford to fund performance variants like the Shelby GT350, which became legendary. Without the success of everyday fastbacks, the Shelby mythology might never have existed. These base models were the foundation of the Mustang phenomenon. Driving a base 1965 Mustang fastback today gives insight into mid-1960s American motoring. Manual steering, power optional, and brakes require more effort than modern cars. Ride is firm but comfortable for a car of its era. Visibility is excellent, and the long hood, short deck design feels sporty. The six-cylinder engine is relaxed and reliable, but V8 options added excitement for those who wanted it. For many collectors, the driving experience is more about nostalgia and style than outright performance. Base fastbacks are relatively easy to restore. Large parts supply. Many components are reproduced or available from original salvage yards. Simple mechanics. Engines, transmissions, and suspension are straightforward to repair. Customization friendly. Many enthusiasts swap engines, upgrade brakes, or restore interiors without complicated electronics. Because of these factors, base fastbacks are a popular choice for first-time classic car owners. The 1965 Ford Mustang fastback base models are everywhere in history but often forgotten in myth. People confuse them with Shelbys, thinking all fastbacks are rare collector items. The truth is, base fastbacks were mass-produced and widely sold. They were reliable, practical, and affordable, making them a cornerstone of Mustang's success. They represent the real story of the Mustang's rise, not just the racing legends. Their styling, cultural impact, and drivability make them valuable to enthusiasts, just not because they are rare. In short, the ordinary fastback tells the true story of the Mustang phenomenon. A car that captured the imagination of America in 1965, affordable and stylish enough for anyone to own, and yet iconic enough to endure as a symbol of the pony car era. Number 7. The 1982 Toyota Celica GT, mass-produced Japanese sportiness. When we think of Japanese sports cars in the early 1980s, a common image is that of exotic imports, sleek, high-tech, and somehow rare. People assumed that Japan's sporty cars were niche machines for enthusiasts willing to pay a premium. But that assumption couldn't be further from the truth. The 1982 Toyota Celica GT is a perfect example of how Japanese automakers were mass-producing sporty cars on a scale that Detroit simply couldn't match. In the early 1980s, Detroit automakers still dominated the American car market, but their focus was largely on large sedans, full-size coupes, and trucks. Compact, affordable sporty cars were not a priority. When Japanese cars appeared, like the Celica, Datsun 280ZX, or Honda Prelude, many enthusiasts assumed they were limited-run imports, built for a niche audience. In reality, Toyota and other Japanese manufacturers were using state-of-the-art production techniques to build tens of thousands of cars per year, making these sports cars available to ordinary consumers. The Celica GT was not a boutique car. It was a mass-produced, high-quality product that combined style, performance, and reliability. The 1982 Celica GT belonged to the third generation, A60, produced from 1979 to 1985. Production numbers for 1982 were significant. Hundreds of thousands of Celicas were produced globally, with the majority destined for the U.S. market. Unlike Detroit sports coupes, which were often low volume or built on luxury platforms, the Celica GT was a purpose-built compact sports car designed for efficiency and reliability. Toyota's ability to produce high-quality sporty cars in volume was something Detroit could not replicate at the time. The combination of affordability, dependability, and sporty styling gave Toyota a competitive edge that lasted for decades. The 1982 Celica GT was aimed at enthusiasts who wanted performance without breaking the bank. Engine, 2.4-liter SOHC inline-4, 22R series, power, approximately 108 horsepower US spec, which was modest by European standards but reliable. Transmission, 5-speed manual standard, 4-speed automatic optional. Front engine, rear-wheel drive layout provided sporty handling and driving enjoyment. Weight, approximately 2,300 pounds, making it light and nimble. Fuel economy, 22 to 28 mpgs, which was very competitive during the fuel-conscious 1980s. The 22R engine is legendary for its durability and longevity. Many of these engines regularly reached 250,000 miles or more with routine maintenance. Unlike many Detroit engines of the era, the Celica's powertrain was bulletproof and easy to repair. The 1982 Celica GT had Aerodynamic fastback design inspired by European coupes. Integrated spoilers and sporty trim distinguishing it from base Celicas. Pop-up headlights, optional on some trims, giving it a futuristic feel for the era. Sporty interior touches, including bucket seats and a driver-oriented dashboard. It offered the look and feel of a sports car at a fraction of the cost of American or European competitors. This combination of affordability, reliability, and style is why the Celica DT became a symbol of practical sports car ownership. Toyota's advantage was production efficiency and scale. Unlike small-batch American or European sports cars, the Celica was engineered for high-volume production without sacrificing quality. Parts availability was excellent, and dealerships could service these cars easily. This meant that a young professional, a first-time buyer, or a small family could own a sporty coupe without fear of excessive maintenance costs. Detroit struggled to offer comparable packages. Many U.S. sporty coupes were heavier, thirstier, or more expensive. The Celica GT was a car that put sportiness into reach of the average consumer. The 1982 Celica GT played a pivotal role in changing perceptions. It proved Japanese cars could be sporty, reliable, and stylish simultaneously. It challenged Detroit's dominance in the sporty compact segment. It helped cement Toyota's reputation as a manufacturer of practical, desirable performance cars. It fueled the future of Japanese sports cars, paving the way for the Supra, MR2, and later Celicas. Interestingly, these cars were not exotic in their day. They were everywhere. Enthusiasts today often treat them like rare imports, but the Celica GT was very much a car for the masses. Driving a 1982 Celica GT today? Light, responsive steering and rear-wheel drive make it enjoyable on twisty roads. The 22R engine is smooth, predictable, and reliable. Braking is adequate for the car's weight, though not modern by today's standards. The suspension is firm but compliant, providing a sporty feel without harshness. Manual transmission models are engaging and connected. Automatic models are relaxed. In short, it delivers the joy of a sports car without demanding exotic maintenance. Myth: Japanese sports cars were exotic and rare in the 1980s. Reality: Toyota, Datsun, and Honda were mass-producing them in numbers Detroit couldn't match. Myth: they were fragile imports. Reality: engines like the 22R in the Celica GT are legendary for durability. Myth: only performance versions were collectible. Reality: base and GT versions were widely used and often more representative of the era's ownership. In spite of being mass-produced, the 1982 Toyota Celica GT is gaining appreciation among collectors. Original examples are increasingly rare because many were driven hard or modified. Restored, unmodified GTs can fetch premium prices, especially with manuals and factory options. The car represents authentic early 1980s Japanese sports car culture, a combination of practicality, reliability, and style. While it's not as valuable as a limited production 280ZX or Supra, the Celica GT is historically significant and increasingly collectible. The 1982 Toyota Celica GT is a perfect example of how Japanese automakers redefined sports cars for the average consumer. Mass-produced, not exotic. Reliable, surviving in large numbers today. Affordable, stylish, and practical. Culturally important, influencing American perceptions of Japanese cars. It challenged Detroit, offered accessible sportiness, and showed the world that a car could be fun to drive without being exotic or fragile. Today, it's celebrated not because it was exclusive, but because it was smart, well-engineered, and ubiquitous. A sports car for everyone. Number 6. The 1976 Cadillac Seville. Perceived exclusivity versus mass production. When Cadillac introduced the Seville in 1975 as a 1976 model, it was pitched as a boutique luxury sedan, smaller, more refined, and intended to compete with imported European sedans like Mercedes-Benz and BMW. Its styling was upright, elegant, and precise, giving the impression of exclusivity. But the reality was quite different. Despite the illusion of rarity, Cadillac was producing Seville sedans in very large numbers. Buyers thought they were getting a limited, European-inspired luxury experience, but in truth, the Seville was very much a mass-produced vehicle. By the mid-1970s, Cadillac's traditional customer base was aging, and competition from imported sedans was growing. European manufacturers were offering smaller, more agile luxury cars, whereas Cadillac's traditional offerings were large, heavy, and dominated by land yacht proportions. The Seville was Cadillac's answer. Smaller footprint, about 16 inches shorter than the Eldorado, making it more maneuverable. Upscale interior, high-quality leather, wood trim, and features meant to appeal to discriminating buyers. European inspiration. Upright grille, sharp angles, and tight panel gaps gave it a distinct modern look for the time. Its design cues suggested a low-volume, exclusive sedan, which reinforced its image as a boutique Cadillac. Despite the boutique image, Cadillac produced Seville sedans in substantial numbers. In 1976 alone, Cadillac built roughly 53,000 Seville sedans. By comparison, many European luxury sedans sold in the U.S. at the time were built in far smaller numbers. Over its first generation, 1976 to 1979, total production exceeded 200,000 units, making the Seville far from rare. This mass production undermines the perception of exclusivity. While buyers were paying premium prices, they were buying a car that Cadillac intended to sell in volume. The Seville styling played a key role in creating the impression of rarity. Upright front grille and sharply defined angles made it look bespoke. Formal roofline and squared-off body panels suggested careful craftsmanship rather than assembly line production. Smaller dimensions compared to the full-size Cadillac fleet gave it an air of refinement. These visual cues fooled many buyers into believing they owned a European-style, limited-production luxury car, when in fact the car was built on a mass-production platform with familiar GM mechanics. The 1976 Cadillac Seville combined Cadillac luxury with familiar GM technology. Engine, 425 cubic inch V8. North Star engine would come later. Horsepower, approximately 220 to 225 horsepower, typical for a luxury car of the era. Transmission, THM 400 automatic. Front engine, rear-wheel drive, standard GM layout. Suspension, fully independent front, solid rear axle with leaf springs. Mechanically, the Seville was robust and reliable, sharing many components with other GM sedans. It was not a bespoke European machine. Its performance and engineering were very much American in approach. The Seville's early marketing emphasized exclusivity. Cadillac advertised it as smaller, sharper, and more refined. Sales brochures compared it to European sedans, implying a boutique experience. Advertisements highlighted leather interiors, optional air conditioning, and luxurious appointments. The result? Many buyers assumed they were purchasing a limited production, hand-finished luxury sedan, when in reality it was a high-volume production Cadillac in the $12,000 to $15,000 range, roughly $60,000 to $75,000 in today's dollars. The Seville filled a niche. Buyers who wanted Cadillac prestige but did not need a huge gas-guzzling land yacht. Owners who appreciated styling and European-inspired luxury touches. People who wanted reliability and service network of GM instead of importing a European car. Its production in substantial numbers ensured that it was widely available, serviceable, and maintained the Cadillac reputation for comfort and durability. Myth: the Seville was rare and exclusive. Reality: mass production meant it was available in large numbers. Myth: only European cars could offer boutique luxury in this size class. Reality: Cadillac successfully produced a domestic alternative with familiar service and reliability. Myth: the Seville drove like a European sedan. Reality: it was still American at heart. Soft suspension, high weight, and smooth but unchallenging handling. Despite these realities, many collectors today mistakenly treat early Sevilles as rare, collectible boutique cars, when their abundance tells a different story. The 1976 Cadillac Seville offered smooth ride quality, typical Cadillac suspension, soft and compliant, ideal for long drives, quiet interior, excellent insulation and low NVH, noise, vibration, and harshness. Handling: competent, but not sporty. The car is stable, but heavy. Power: adequate for its weight, but acceleration is leisurely by modern standards. In short, the Seville was a comfortable luxury cruiser, not a nimble European-style sedan. Its driving experience reinforced its perception as refined, but not rare. Early Sevilles are moderately collectible, but not due to scarcity. Survivors exist in reasonable numbers due to build quality. Original examples with low mileage are increasingly sought after. Collectors prize styling and historical significance. The Seville represents Cadillac's first serious attempt to enter the compact luxury segment. Its collectability value comes more from design, comfort, and historical context, not true rarity. The 1976 Cadillac Seville is a fascinating study in perception versus reality. Its upright, elegant styling fooled buyers into believing it was a boutique luxury car. Cadillac, however, produced it in the hundreds of thousands, ensuring wide availability and serviceability. Mechanically, it was reliable, familiar, and American, not a European-inspired performance sedan. Its historical significance lies in being Cadillac's first attempt to compete in a smaller luxury segment, paving the way for future models like the Seville II and later CTS. In essence, the Seville demonstrates that perceived exclusivity can be created through styling, marketing, and positioning, even when production numbers tell a very different story. While it remains a classic today, collectors should understand that its real value is in design, comfort, and historical context.
Number 5. The 1978 Pontiac Trans Am. Pop culture rarity versus reality. When you hear the name 1978 Pontiac Trans Am, most people immediately picture a black muscle car with gold accents, a massive hood decal of a screaming Firebird, and Burt Reynolds behind the wheel in Smokey and the Bandit. That movie transformed the Trans Am into a symbol of rebellion, speed, and 1970s Americana. Overnight, the car seemed rare, exotic, and incredibly desirable. But here's the truth. The 1978 Trans Am, especially the black and gold Screaming Chicken edition, was anything but rare. Pontiac was selling them in huge numbers, and by the late 1970s, these cars were so common that used car lots were drowning in black and gold TAs. The contrast between Hollywood myth and reality is stark, and it's a fascinating story of marketing, pop culture, and perception. By 1978, the muscle car era in America was winding down. Emissions regulations and rising insurance rates were throttling performance. Pontiac needed a way to keep the Firebird and Trans Am relevant. Introduced in 1967 as a sporty coupe, the Firebird evolved into a performance icon by the mid-1970s. The Trans Am, created in 1969, was a performance package with upgraded suspension, engines, and styling cues. By 1978, the Trans Am had grown into Pontiac's halo car, the model meant to attract attention and showcase the brand's capabilities. The 1978 edition introduced bold graphics, most famously the black and gold color scheme with the massive hood decal, the so-called "screaming chicken." This gave the car instant visual appeal and movie-ready drama. Smokey and the Bandit was released in 1977 for the 1977 to 78 model years. Burt Reynolds' Trans Am became the poster car for a generation. People associated the car with speed, daring, and coolness. Black and gold color schemes were seen as exclusive or limited, even though they weren't. Movie magic created the impression that only a few existed, fueling collector mythology. This is a classic case where Hollywood elevated perception above reality. People believed the car was ultra-rare because it looked spectacular on the big screen and because the movie made it iconic overnight. In reality, the 1978 Trans Am was produced in very large quantities. Total Trans Am production in 1978, approximately 43,000 units. Black and Gold edition, several thousand produced, not vanishingly rare. By comparison, European sports cars sold in smaller numbers, yet the 1978 Trans Am is often treated as rarer than Ferraris or Porsches from the same era. Pontiac was meeting demand, not producing boutique cars. Showrooms across America were filled with TAs, especially after the Smokey and the Bandit boom. In fact, the very popularity of the car meant dealers often had more black and gold Trans Ams than they could sell, making it surprisingly common at the time. The 1978 Trans Am was more than just style. It had some performance credibility, though not a true supercar by modern standards. Engines, mostly Pontiac 400 V8 or 403 V8, depending on market. Horsepower, 200 to 220 HP, net rating for emissions era. Transmission, 3-speed manual or 3-speed automatic. Suspension, upgraded Trans Am package with stiffer springs, sway bars, and performance shocks. Brakes, front disc, rear drum. Performance was decent, but the 1978 Trans Am was heavier and less nimble than early 1970s muscle cars due to emissions and safety equipment. It was stylish and sporty, but not a modern performance benchmark. The defining feature was, of course, the hood decal. The Firebird emblem stretched across the hood and front fenders. The decal was available in multiple sizes, with the largest version reserved for the Trans Am SE, or Special Edition. Combined with black paint and gold accents, it became instantly recognizable and cinematic. Other styling cues included T-tops or solid roofs, gold snowflake wheels, and color-matched trim. These design choices contributed to the illusion of rarity, especially when seen in the context of Hollywood glamour. Even today, many enthusiasts believe that the black and gold 1978 Trans Am is extremely rare. This is not true. Myth: only a few exist. Reality: thousands were built and many survived due to popularity. Myth: they are highly collectible solely because of scarcity. Reality: collectability comes from pop culture significance rather than low production numbers. Myth: all surviving examples are pristine. Reality: many were driven hard, modified, or left to age, making original, unmodified examples increasingly rare, but not impossible to find. Driving a 1978 Trans Am is a ride from the muscle car heyday, but with 1970s compromises. Engine is torquey but mellow, perfect for highway cruising. Steering is heavy and slow by modern standards. Suspension is soft yet stable, giving a floaty, comfortable feel. Handling is adequate for the era, but the car is not a corner-carving sports machine. Its driving experience complements its image. It looks fast and aggressive, but in reality, it's a stylish cruiser. Several factors keep it iconic today. Pop culture association, Smokey and the Bandit immortalize it. Visual impact, the massive hood decal and black and gold theme make it instantly recognizable. Nostalgia, it evokes late 1970s Americana and muscle car culture. Affordability, because it was mass-produced, many examples survive for restoration or collection. Even though it was never rare, its cultural significance outweighs production reality, making it one of the most beloved muscle cars of the era. Collectors are willing to pay premiums for black and gold 1978 Trans Ams, project cars, $15,000 to $25,000. Well-preserved examples, $30,000 to $50,000. Show-quality restorations, $60,000. This is driven by nostalgia and Hollywood fame, not by actual scarcity. The car is a cultural icon first, mechanical icon second. The 1978 Pontiac Trans Am Screaming Chicken Edition is a perfect example of pop culture shaping perception. Hollywood made it appear ultra-rare and highly desirable. In reality, Pontiac produced thousands, and the car was everywhere on dealer lots. Its value today comes from styling, nostalgia, and iconic status, not scarcity. Mechanically, it's a solid, if not exceptional, muscle car of the late 1970s. The story of the 1978 Trans Am reminds us that myth and reality often diverge. The movies gave it legendary status, but the production numbers tell a very different story. It's a lesson in how marketing, media, and style can turn an ordinary car into a lasting icon. Number 4. The 1981 Chevrolet Corvette, base L81, hype versus reality. When people think of Corvettes, they imagine high-performance sports cars, rare models, and collectible icons. The Corvette has earned a legendary reputation in American automotive culture, spanning decades of innovation and performance. Because of this, collectors often hype every model year as special. But the reality is different, especially when it comes to early 1980s models like the 1981 Corvette Base L81. These cars were mass-produced, slower, and less desirable compared to earlier Corvettes. Yet today, many enthusiasts treat them as collectible treasures, sometimes misunderstanding their historical context. Let's explore why the 1981 L81 Corvette is both misunderstood and historically interesting. The early 1980s were a challenging time for American sports cars. The U.S. economy was facing inflation, high gas prices, and stricter emissions regulations. Corvettes, known for powerful V8 engines and aggressive performance, were now constrained by federal emissions and fuel economy mandates. Chevrolet needed to maintain Corvette production and sales while navigating these regulatory challenges. The 1981 Corvette represents this transitional period. While it retained its iconic styling and sports car appeal, it had less horsepower and more conservative performance than the high-output Corvettes of the 1960s and early 1970s. The 1981 Corvette was far from rare. Total production, approximately 42,000 units, all using the new L81 350 cubic inch V8. This made it widely available, and many examples remain in existence today. By comparison, some earlier Corvette years or special editions like the ZR1 or limited L88 models were produced in much smaller numbers, making them truly rare. Yet today, many enthusiasts treat them as collectible treasures, sometimes misunderstanding their historical context. The 1981 Corvette Base L81 came with modest specifications compared to earlier or later performance variants. Engine: 350 cubic inch L81 V8, tuned for emissions compliance. Power: approximately 190 horsepower net. Rating: a noticeable drop from late 1970s Corvettes. Transmission: 4-speed manual or 3-speed automatic. Weight: about 3,200 pounds, slightly heavier than 1970s models. Performance: 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 8.5 seconds. Top speed around 125 miles per hour. These specifications were respectable for the era, but not Corvette legend material. The car retained the fiberglass body, front engine, rear-wheel drive, and unmistakable Corvette styling, but performance was curtailed by emissions and fuel economy requirements. Styling was one of the Corvette's key strengths in 1981. C3 Corvette body, iconic swooping fenders, pop-up headlights, and long hood. Removable T-top roof panels provided a quasi-convertible experience. Interior upgrades, optional leather seats, modern gauges, and electronics. Color options: bright red, black, white, and a few bold hues. Even though performance was modest, the appearance still screamed Corvette, and this visual identity contributed to the car's perceived value among collectors. Collectors often make assumptions about early 1980s Corvettes. Myth: every Corvette is rare and highly collectible. Reality: base L81 Corvettes were mass-produced and remain relatively common. Myth: all early 80s Corvettes are valuable. Reality: many cars are slower and less desirable due to emissions-era engines and conservative performance tuning. In other words, hype often outpaces reality. The 1981 Corvette looks iconic, but it was designed for compliance and continuity, not breaking speed records. Driving a 1981 base L81 Corvette today gives insight into emissions-era American sports cars. Acceleration: modest, not thrilling compared to 1960s or late 1970s models. Steering: heavier than modern sports cars with classic feedback. Suspension: firm yet comfortable, capable of handling twisty roads. Comfort: surprisingly livable, with T-tops allowing open-air driving. Noise and vibration: relatively low, making it suitable for cruising. The car feels authentically Corvette, but without the raw performance that defined earlier generations. Several factors contributed to the survival rate of early 1980s Corvettes. Durable design: fiberglass body panels resist rust. Reliable drivetrain: the L81 engine and automatic transmission are robust. Easy maintenance: parts remain widely available, making restoration feasible. Appeal: affordable, stylish sports car that was enjoyable to drive. These factors mean that many 1981 Corvettes still exist, making them more common than many collectors realize. Collector myths persist. Ultra rare, false, thousands were made. High performance, false for base L81, but marketing exaggerates the image. Investment grade: only in pristine, low-mileage examples does it hold significant collector value. The truth is that collectability is more about historical context, originality, and nostalgia than rarity or performance. Despite being slower, the 1981 base L81 Corvette represents an important era. Transitional period, shifting from high-output muscle to emissions-conscious performance. Cultural icon: the Corvette's design remained instantly recognizable. Influence on later Corvettes: Lessons from the early 1980s influenced the C4 Corvette, introduced in 1984. The car embodies the resilience of the Corvette brand, maintaining identity despite regulatory and economic pressures. The 1981 Chevrolet Corvette Base L81 is a classic misunderstood by collectors. Mass-produced, not rare. Slower and less desirable than earlier or later performance models. Reliable, stylish, and historically important. Collector value comes from nostalgia, condition, and originality, not rarity or performance. This Corvette teaches an important lesson. Brand reputation and iconic design can overshadow reality. While the early 1980s Corvette may not be a performance legend, it remains an authentic, accessible, and culturally significant piece of American automotive history.
Number 3. The 1984 Pontiac Fiero. Futuristic hype versus mass production reality. When Pontiac unveiled the Fiero in 1984, it was hailed as America's first mass-produced mid-engine sports car. The marketing promised futuristic styling, exotic performance, and a driving experience unlike anything else in the domestic market. People assumed the Fiero would be rare, high-tech, and special, perhaps on par with Italian sports cars. The reality, however, was very different. Pontiac produced over 100,000 Fieros in its first year, making it anything but rare. The car was designed to appeal to budget-conscious enthusiasts and commuters seeking style and practicality rather than exotic performance. The contrast between perception and reality provides a fascinating story about 1980s American automotive marketing and culture. The early 1980s were a challenging era for American automakers. Rising insurance rates and fuel prices had killed much of the high-performance car market. Compact, fuel-efficient, and stylish vehicles were becoming more important. Pontiac needed a way to create excitement without high costs or risky engineering. The Fiero was conceived as a small, mid-engine, two-seat coupe intended to showcase Pontiac's ingenuity while remaining affordable and practical. Its design was futuristic, hinting at Italian supercars, but the engineering was pragmatic and cost-conscious. Contrary to the perception of rarity, the Fiero was produced in large numbers. Over 100,000 units in its first model year, 1984. Sales continued strong, with hundreds of thousands produced over its lifetime, 1984 to 1988. The car was widely available at dealerships, often with little waiting time. This scale of production contrasts strongly with exotic imports, yet marketing and styling made the Fiero feel like a limited edition sports car. The Fiero's design contributed to its hype. Mid-engine layout, unique for an American car, creating the illusion of exotic performance. Pop-up headlights and wedge-shaped body borrowed cues from Italian supercars like Ferrari and Lamborghini. Two-seater layout reinforced the sporty, exclusive feel. Lightweight body panels and aerodynamic styling promised performance and efficiency. The result, the Fiero looked much faster and more exotic than it actually was, giving buyers the sense that they were buying a special car, even though it was mass-produced. The 1984 Fiero was engineered with practicality in mind rather than raw performance. Engine, 2.5-liter Iron Duke inline-4. Power, 92 HP. Base engine, modest even for the time. Transmission, 5-speed manual standard, 3-speed automatic optional. Weight, 2,400 pounds, making it light but not particularly fast. Suspension, independent front and rear for improved handling. While the car was nimble due to its lightweight design and mid-engine layout, it wasn't a high-performance supercar. The mid-engine configuration was innovative,
but the base engine limited its speed and acceleration. Driving a 1984 Fiero offers insight into 1980s American sports car priorities. Handling, surprisingly agile thanks to mid-engine weight distribution and independent suspension. Acceleration, modest, 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 11 seconds for the base 2.5-liter model. Steering, responsive but light, making city driving easy. T-tops, optional, allowed an open-air experience, adding to the futuristic vibe. The driving experience was enjoyable for enthusiasts seeking style and hands-on handling, but it wasn't exotic by European standards. The Fiero's marketing created several common misconceptions. Myth: the Fiero was rare. Reality: over 100,000 were sold in the first year, with hundreds of thousands more over its production run. Myth: it was a high-performance sports car. Reality: base models were underpowered, only later V6 versions offered improved performance. Myth: it was fragile or experimental. Reality: Fieros were built using GM's proven assembly techniques and components, making them reliable and repairable. Marketing and styling made it seem exclusive and high-tech, but it was very much a mass-market vehicle in disguise. Despite its limitations, the Fiero was important in automotive history. First mass-produced mid-engine American car, inspiring later performance models. Independent rear suspension in a production car was rare at the time. Lightweight design and fuel efficiency foreshadowed modern sports coupes. The Fiero was symbolic of Pontiac's creativity and ambition, even if the execution wasn't exotic. Collector interest in early Fieros is rising. Original low-mileage examples are sought after for restoration or nostalgia. The 1984 base model is less desirable than later GT or V6 variants, but it remains historically significant. Pop culture and the futuristic image increase collector appeal despite mass production. The lesson is, collectability is influenced more by perception, style, and historical context than actual rarity or performance. Several factors contributed to the survival of early Fieros. Lightweight, durable body panels. Simple, reliable engines for base models. Wide availability of parts due to GM platform sharing. Enthusiast communities formed early, maintaining and restoring cars. This explains why many 1984 Fieros are still on the road today, contrary to the idea that they were limited production exotics. The 1984 Pontiac Fiero is a fascinating example of hype versus reality in the automotive world. Marketed as a futuristic, exotic sports car, but mass-produced and affordable. Innovative mid-engine layout and styling created the illusion of exclusivity. Base models were underpowered, but nimble and practical. Collectability today is driven by nostalgia and design, not rarity. The Fiero teaches us that perception can overshadow reality. Pontiac successfully created a car that felt exotic, even when it was designed for the mass market. It remains a symbol of 1980s innovation, ambition, and style, bridging the gap between American practicality and sports car aspiration. Number 2. The 1983 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. When people talk about the 1983 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme, they often frame it as a forgotten classic or underappreciated gem of the early 1980s. But the reality is far more mundane and far more common. The Cutlass Supreme was ubiquitous in suburban America. If you grew up in the early 80s, chances are your neighbor, uncle, or parent owned one. Yet automotive nostalgia has a strange way of rebranding the ordinary as special, and that's exactly what happened with this Oldsmobile. By 1983, Oldsmobile was positioning the Cutlass Supreme as its top midsize offering, blending comfort, style, and reliability. GM's midsize platform, based on the A body platform shared with Pontiac Grand Prix, Buick Regal, and Chevrolet Malibu. Front engine, rear-wheel drive, standard layout for the era. Market strategy, appealed to families and professionals seeking a stylish yet affordable personal luxury car. The Cutlass Supreme represented the peak of mainstream American automotive success, a car that could be bought by anyone and driven comfortably for decades. This is where reality diverges from myth. Production in 1983 alone, over 200,000 units. The car was everywhere, streets, shopping centers, and parking lots across America. Its popularity ensured parts, service, and resale value remained strong. Despite this, enthusiasts often treat the Cutlass Supreme as a rare find, ignoring the fact that millions of units were sold in the early 1980s. The 1983 Cutlass Supreme was styled to look upscale without costing a fortune. Long hood, short deck proportions gave it a personal luxury car stance. Vinyl roof options and pinstriping, common on higher trims to simulate luxury. Wire wheel covers and chrome trim added flair for those who wanted style without paying Cadillac prices. Interior, plush bench or bucket seats, analog gauges, and well-padded materials. It was familiar, comfort-driven, and approachable, making it perfect for everyday life, but far from exotic. Under the hood, the 1983 Cutlass Supreme offered multiple power plants, balancing performance and reliability. Base engine, 3.8-liter V6 or Fireball. Optional engines, 5.0-liter and 5.7-liter V8s. Horsepower, 110 to 170 horsepower depending on engine choice. Transmission, 3-speed automatic standard, 4-speed manual optional on select trims. Ride and handling, soft suspension designed for comfort rather than sporty driving. It was smooth, quiet, and reliable, perfect for commuting or weekend cruising. These qualities made it ubiquitous in suburban America, everybody's uncle car. Despite its dominance, enthusiasts and riders often mischaracterize the 1983 Cutlass Supreme. Myth: it's a forgotten jewel. Reality: it was everywhere in its day, and countless examples remain. Myth: it's collectible because it's rare. Reality: millions were sold. Rarity is not a factor. Myth: it was innovative or luxurious for the era. Reality: it was competent, stylish, and comfortable, but largely conventional. In short, nostalgia often paints ubiquity as charm, transforming ordinary cars into perceived classics. The Cutlass Supreme's cultural impact is undeniable. Icon of suburban America, seen in family photos, road trips, and parking lots nationwide. Accessible style, gave middle-class buyers a taste of personal luxury. Influence on GM and competitors. The success of the Cutlass Supreme shaped midsize and personal luxury offerings throughout the 1980s. Its presence in everyday life created a sense of familiarity and comfort, contributing to its place in automotive nostalgia. Driving a 1983 Cutlass Supreme today reveals why it was so widespread. Ride comfort. Soft suspension absorbed bumps, ideal for long drives. Handling, predictable, stable, but uninspiring in corners. Power delivery, smooth V6 or V8 engines provided adequate acceleration for daily life. Noise and vibration, well-insulated cabin made for quiet cruising. Ergonomics, spacious interior, straightforward controls, and large windows. It's the definition of a car built for comfort and convenience, not thrills. Many 1983 Cutlass Supremes survive today because of durable construction, body-on-frame design, and corrosion-resistant materials. Reliable engines, GM V6 and V8 power plants were serviceable and long-lasting. Parts availability, shared platform with other GM midsize cars ensures easy maintenance. The high survival rate further undermines the myth of rarity. These cars were built to last and were widely used. The Cutlass Supreme teaches some important lessons about automotive perception. Ubiquity can be reframed as nostalgia. People remember the car fondly because it was everywhere, not because it was rare. Everyday cars can gain legendary status. Cultural memory often elevates the ordinary to iconic. Design and comfort often trump performance in collective memory. People remember how it looked and felt, not how fast it went. This is why the 1983 Cutlass Supreme is often talked about as a forgotten classic, despite being anything but forgotten in its heyday. The Cutlass Supreme is a perfect example of everyday ubiquity being mistaken for rarity or hidden value. It was everywhere in 1983, making it a familiar sight for millions of Americans. Its combination of comfort, style, and practicality made it an enduring favorite for families and commuters. Its cultural impact is real, but its rarity is not. Collectability and nostalgia often elevate the ordinary to legend, even when production numbers tell a very different story. In essence, the Cutlass Supreme reminds us that sometimes the most iconic cars are the ones we saw everywhere, driven by uncles, parents, and neighbors, not exotic or rare supercars. Its place in automotive history is secure, not because it was unusual, but because it was representative of an era in American life.
Number 1. The 1973 Chevrolet Chevelle Malibu. When you hear people talk about the 1973 Chevrolet Chevelle, they often assume any Chevelle is rare, collectible, and desirable. Car enthusiasts on forums frequently brag about owning a Chevelle, implying that it's some exotic muscle car. The reality, unless it's an SS model, a 1973 Chevelle Malibu is really just an everyday family car from the 70s. It's reliable, practical, and ubiquitous. Exactly what made it popular, but not what made it rare. Understanding the distinction between SS models and the Malibu helps clarify why so many regular Chevelles are common today. Chevrolet's midsize line in the early 1970s was dominated by the Chevelle platform, a versatile range of cars spanning trims, engines, and body styles. Malibu trim positioned as the mainstream, family-friendly version. SS trim, performance-oriented, designed for muscle car enthusiasts. By 1973, Chevelles were one of America's best-selling midsize cars, balancing affordability, style, and practicality. The Malibu was meant to appeal to suburban families and everyday commuters, not speed freaks or collectors. The 1973 Chevrolet Chevelle Malibu was produced in massive quantities. Total Chevelle production for 1973, over 600,000 units. Malibu models made up the bulk of production. SS models were far fewer, accounting for a small fraction of total output. This explains why so many people remember seeing Chevelles on the street or in neighborhoods. They were everywhere. Mass production also means most surviving Chevelles today are Malibu trim, not high-performance SS models. The Malibu had styling cues that made it attractive but mainstream. Clean, simple lines, boxy yet elegant proportions. Chrome bumpers and trim gave a polished appearance without luxury pricing. Interior, comfortable bench or optional bucket seats, functional dashboard, and a roomy cabin. Body styles, two-door coupe, four-door sedan, and wagon versions catered to families and commuters. The result? A car that looked stylish for the 1970s, but not exotic or rare. Its wide appeal contributed to its ubiquity. Most 1973 Malibus came with practical, reliable engines rather than high-performance V8s. Base engine, 250 cubic inch inline 6, producing about 110 HP. Optional engines, 307 cubic inch or 350 cubic inch V8, offering moderate performance. Transmission, a 3-speed manual or optional 3-speed automatic. Handling,
comfortable ride with soft suspension, prioritizing smooth cruising over sporty cornering. By contrast, the SS package included high-output 396 cubic inch or 454 cubic inch V8s, heavy-duty suspension, and other performance upgrades. These SS models are the only Chevelles that genuinely fall into the rare collectible category for this era. Despite its mass-market nature, many enthusiasts inflate the rarity and desirability of the Malibu. Myth: all Chevelles are collectible. Reality: only SS or rare optioned models like the Z25 or LS6 are sought after. Myth: owning a Malibu is equivalent to owning a muscle car. Reality: most Malibus were standard family cars with moderate engines and soft suspension. Myth: early 1970s Chevelles were performance icons. Reality: only select high-performance variants achieved this status. Many Chevelle bragging stories overlook the difference between Malibu everyday cars and SS muscle machines. Driving a 1973 Chevelle Malibu today shows why it was so popular. Ride comfort, smooth, cushioned suspension ideal for suburban streets, acceleration, adequate for daily driving but far slower than SS models, steering, responsive enough for city driving but soft and heavy at highway speeds, interior, spacious, functional, and comfortable for families, reliability. Simple engines and robust construction allowed many cars to survive decades. It's a dependable, practical car rather than a performance thrill ride. Despite being ordinary, the Malibu is memorable in automotive culture. Seen in countless suburban driveways and parking lots, popular in the U.S. for commuting, errands, and family trips. Frequently remembered in personal nostalgia, contributing to its classic aura. Its ubiquity has created a perception of nostalgia-driven value, even if rarity is non-existent. Many Malibus still exist today. Durable body-on-frame construction resists rust better than unibody contemporaries. Engines are simple and serviceable, making restoration feasible. Common availability of parts ensures the cars remain on the road. Wide ownership ensures that many survived long-term, reinforcing the idea that Chevelles were everywhere. This high survival rate contrasts with the perception of rarity, which is why collectors often mistake common Malibus for hidden gems. The 1973 Chevrolet Chevelle Malibu teaches important lessons about automotive perception. Not all classics are rare or exotic. Many are ordinary, reliable cars remembered fondly. Cultural nostalgia elevates the ordinary. Suburban ubiquity creates collective memory. Performance models deserve distinction. Only SS or rare option packages merit true collector hype. Understanding the distinction between Malibu and SS models clarifies why some Chevelles are valuable while most are not. The 1973 Chevrolet Chevelle Malibu is a classic everyday car that is often misunderstood. It was mass-produced, not rare. It was reliable and practical, perfect for families and suburban life. Its appearance is nostalgically appealing, but performance is moderate unless equipped with an SS package. Popularity and nostalgia sometimes lead enthusiasts to overestimate its collectability. In short, owning a 1973 Malibu is owning a slice of 1970s Americana, but it's not the rare muscle car many think it is. Its place in history is secure, not for scarcity or power, but for ubiquity, reliability, and nostalgia.